Your ears do math. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mondays with Mooche. My name is Joe Muccioli. That's where Mooche comes from. I am the artistic director for the non-profit organization Jazz Arts Project. For those of you who are new to us, this organization, well, at least way back in the before times, we used to produce 20 to 30 world-class concert events each year, and we use the proceeds from those events to fund our music education programs for area youth. We actually had live events at that time, usually a summer crammed with cafe nights, outdoor park concerts, summer music camps for kids, then the annual Sinatra Birthday Bash, year-round intensive music training with our Jazz Arts Academy, those student showcase concerts, talk and jazz events in April, all kinds of activity. Oh, I left out the annual barbecue garden party. So early in the pandemic, we began doing these Monday night shows. In 2020 alone, we presented over 30 virtual Zoom events, each with a featured guest, musicians, authors, scholars. We talked about their careers and whatever else came up. The audience, you folks, joined in with questions and comments. It was sort of like a open roundtable discussion in some ways. We continued this throughout that year, and this year, whenever we could, we even produced a few live stream virtual concerts and actually some live in-person events like the Jazz in the Park series and the Two River Theater patio shows during the summertime. So thank you for those of you who have been with us this whole journey, and if you are new to us, I hope you'll find it enjoyable and become a supporting member. Follow us for whatever, you never know, whatever pops up in the future. As a matter of fact, we have something to talk about a little later that's going to be exciting, but more on that later. So here we are in season 3, and we thought we'd try something different. We thought together we could explore music a bit more deeply. What does it mean to us? How do we use it? How do we experience it? How do we hear it? How does it reflect our feelings and connections? Family, friends, culture, heritage, communities, nationality, and our own upbringing and life experiences. Let's explore how to really listen to music, how to hear more nuance and depth. Hopefully we can come away with a more enjoyable and knowledgeable experience and learn more about careful, discerning, and critical listening to music. This series is an open forum and roundtable discussion where we can explore the depths of music, meaning, and nuance together. Last week we talked about how or what music represents in our personal worlds and how we listen to it, and how music creates motion in a stagnant arena, much like the paintings by the great artists created light on canvas. We listened to an Ellington piece called the Mooche and began to dissect it layer by layer. What feelings did it bring up and why? Of course, we can only scratch the surface of this, and maybe we should revisit it in more detail sometime because there's so much more to discover in that little piece. But today I'm going to attempt to show you something that you may or may not believe. Your ears do math. Of course, many people are terrified of mathematics, me included. Yet, people often think about math and music being connected in various ways, right? Sound vibration, signal processing, instrument design, acoustics are all shaped by principles of physics, which is written in the language of math. Then, of course, there's good old Pythagoras. Some 3,000 years ago, he studied math and music, trying to understand harmony and nature. He developed the musical scales, and from that we get modes and numbers representing chords or patterns. Pythagoras felt that the universe, the gods, the heavens, the planets, music, physics, the world, all existed in harmony. Of course, he wasn't around for the past few hundred years, or the past couple of years for that matter, and in fact, he died an early death. He was killed by an angry mob who did not agree with his views on math and religion. So much for harmony. But I'm not talking about all that. People say, oh, musicians must be good at math. They're not actually, by and large, except for what we're about to talk about. And even if you don't know anything about math, or music for that matter, I still maintain that your ears do the math. Let's call it inner math. So for all those people you think may are tone deaf, they may just be bad at math or inner math. Sound is vibration of air. Everything that makes a sound is vibrating. Something is shaking up the air around it and creating vibrations. The vibrations are transmitted through the air to our ears, where they're picked up and translated to us as sound. The pitch of any sound, the note, the high or low, is decided by how fast the air is shaken. The lower the frequency of vibration, the lower the note, and the higher the frequency, the higher the note. You can't hear certain sounds, such as dog whistle, because some notes are just too high for the human ear to detect. We call these ultrasound. Other sounds are too low, Other sounds are too low for us to hear. These are called infrasound. These vibrations are measured in hertz. It's a measurement of the rate of vibrations. It's named after Heinrich Rudolf Hertz, 1857 to 1894. So Heinrich is an interesting fellow. Among many other achievements, he's known as the inventor of the dipole antenna, or as we know it, the rabbit ears TV antenna. Remember that? Basically, 1 hertz is equal to 1 hit or air pulse per second. Humans can generally hear frequencies between 20 and 20,000 hertz. And interestingly, the lowest note on a piano is a very low A, clocking in at a whopping 27.5 hertz. That's pretty low. But a 1 hertz note could never be heard by us, but it would be 1 vibration per second, and it would actually be a very low, low, low C. There, can you hear it? Well, of course not. Nobody can hear that low. Well, maybe whales or elephants can, I'm not sure. A regular vibration, that is a vibration of a steady rate, produces what we perceive as a note, a pitch. An irregular vibration produces a noise, or drums. No offense to our drummer friends. So now we get to talk a little more about physics, which is really what we've been doing all along. Acoustics, physics, but all that's really math anyway. So let's go to string theory. If you stretch out a string to any length, and pluck it, you usually see that it vibrates. We can represent that string as an image like this. It creates kind of an arc when you pluck it, and the vibration makes a sound. Well, no more like this. The length of the string would dictate how high or low the note sounds. A shorter string would sound like a higher note, and a longer string would sound like a lower note. Musical instruments depend upon the fact that every stretched string, or every length of pipe for that matter, has its own natural vibration frequency. When set in motion, each will send out vibrations of its own frequency into the surrounding air. If that string is kept at a constant tension, it'll vibrate at the same rate every time it's plucked. In other words, the note produced will always be the same, since the pitch of the sound depends on the frequency of vibration. But now it gets interesting, at least to mathematicians, and subconsciously to the rest of us. Each length of string or pipe has some secrets within it. First of all, if we keep the same length of string, in this case let's call it the note A, and then hold the center so that you're dissecting the string exactly in half. If you pluck either half, you'll hear a sound that is the same note but an octave higher. And then if you hold down each third of the string, you'll get actually a different note. This time you happen to get a note that is a fifth degree higher than the original note. In this case, it's the note E. And so on. You can keep dividing that string an infinite number of times and produce higher and higher tones or frequencies. And if you put all these together, what do you get? Anyone? You get a nice big fat blues chord. An A dominant 7 for those of you keeping score. Alright, here is a chart that shows just the first few divisions and the correlating frequencies in musical notes. Here you see that each subdivision of a frequency produces a new note. And this works whatever note you begin with. Here we started with the note A at 110 hertz. Times 2 is 220 hertz. It produces the note A again, but an octave higher. Times 3 is 330 hertz, and it's now the note E, and so on. For those of you in the advanced class, you may notice that this is outlining the beginning of what we call the harmonic series of overtones. More on that in a minute, but let's review for a second. Vibration creates sound by messing with the air. Regularly spaced vibrations create notes. Irregularly spaced vibrations create noise. A low frequency generates a low note. A high frequency generates a high note. And frequency is measured in hertz, meaning it's the number of air pulses in a 1 second time frame. Also, a length of string or pipe can be subdivided to produce different frequencies or notes. So far, so good? Okay, now, why does a clarinet sound different than a bassoon or a guitar if they're playing the same note? So there it is. There's some of the story anyway.
Wow,
Can you
Joe,
guys hear
I'm
me?
That was,
I'm speechless.
Yeah, I had a little bit too much free time.
I've got my, I've been taking some notes, but I feel like I need to. Luckily, this is being recorded, so I can go back and review.
I
It
And
is
didn't
being
realize there was so much science to music. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
it's really unbelievable.
that I'm convinced our ears do math because all these numbers and all these things that go on within producing any kind of sound and any kind of music, our ears just do this naturally, right? But to the question of why does a clarinet not sound like a bassoon if they're playing the same note, it has to do with we're going to get into this a little bit more, but it has to do with resonance, right? Each string or pipe, however an instrument is manufactured, is made from materials that has resonance built into it. Remember, I stuck in the words harmonics and overtones
Hmm.
into that video. Every tone that you hear actually has more than that one tone in it. So if you pluck a string, you're not only getting that first note, but you're getting all the subdivisions that I pointed out as well in different configurations. I'm going to try something. I don't know. Can you hear that? No, I bet you can't. Uh, well, at some point, I'm going to see if I can get like this keyboard rigged up into there because I can show it much better on the keyboard. In any
Okay.
case, in any case, a note played on any instrument, that primary note is just the beginning. We're also hearing half of that note, or an octave higher, and a fifth higher than that, and a chord fourth higher than that, and a third higher than that, and so on to infinity, right? Which makes some instruments outline certain of those what we call overtones more so than others. Like a clarinet might have more of the higher overtones present than a string bass. A
But is
string
that
bass
true
has,
for all clarinets, or different types of clarinets? You mentioned based on what it's made out of, the material that it's made out of.
sure, a clarinet made out of wood is going to have a slightly different timbre than a clarinet made out of metal, for example, right? But clarinets in general sound the same because of the shape they are, the length of them, and the way that the vibration is produced, right? So we talk about vibrations, but each instrument has a different way of producing that vibration. A
Hmm.
clarinet has a reed that you put in your mouth and you blow a reed to a mouthpiece, and the reed vibrates, and therefore it shakes up the air inside the clarinet, and it goes out into the air so that you can hear it, right? A trumpet player has a mouthpiece put up against his face and buzzes his lips, and his lips are actually doing the vibration, and it travels through the trumpet and it shoots out and to the air, and your ears are hearing that air, right? So, and obviously a string bass or a guitar or whatever is plucking a string. A piano is plucking strings also. If you ever looked inside a piano, there's a bunch of strings in there, and the hammers actually hit the strings to make them vibrate. And if you guys have a piano at home, if I can't get this experiment working, just, pick a low C and hit it fairly forcibly. Let me see if I can call up this one. Yeah. If you hit it like that's an A.
We
My
can't.
example was in A overtone series for the video, but I have one here in C. If you pick a low C on a clarinet, uh, on a
Piano.
piano, you're going to hear, you're playing this note. Can you see my cursor? No.
Uh, it's
All
a
right,
little small.
No, you
let me
might have to
do,
share that. You might have to share
Yeah, if you
that.
share your screen, we'll be able to see it larger.
oh, good point. Okay. Share screen. Share this. Is that working?
Yes.
All right, and I can probably get this. So this note is C. Oh, yeah. Right? You see that? Now I can't hear you.
Yes.
Okay. That note is C. If you hit that note on a piano, you're also going to hear all these other notes. Some of them may be more prominent than the others. Like, for example, this one will be really, really prominent if you hit that low C. For some reason, that's sort of the nature of the piano, where that one rings true. It's interesting that if you really listen, you can start hearing all these other pitches. When you think you're only listening to one note, you're actually listening to all these pitches on infinitum up the scale, right? Uh, and this is kind of a natural thing. It happens universally in nature. Any source of vibration will have this very same overtone series. Even a noise, even a rock falling on a on a stream somewhere. That maybe irregular vibration still has a sense of overtones in it. It's really it's an amazing phenomenon. Uh, Once you sort of wrap your head around it, to the point where some mathematicians have. Oh, let me get
Oh,
rid of
wow.
the. How do I do
Real
this?
math formulas
Yeah,
used for
clear.
music.
Right.
So, Joe, I have a question for you, and maybe even for other musicians who are on the call tonight. At what point in your life as a musician do you get to the physics part? I mean, when do you realize and start to learn these more advanced concepts and ideas about the overtones and the vibrations? And I mean, 'cause this just seems really very far advanced. And I'm just curious, do all musicians learn this, or do you not need to know all this? How does it? I never knew any of this existed. So if anybody who is a musician here would like to share or write in the chat, and Joe, I would
That
like
would
to
that
hear your response.
that would be fascinating. Let me stop the share here. Um, it's a great question. I'd have to think about that. I think as you take lessons as a musician, as you're learning, you start discovering things from those lessons. Like somebody says to you, well, you have to aim the airstream a certain way in order to get that happening. And you start thinking about airstream, and then you start thinking about vibrations. How do you buzz your lips a certain way, or whatever? And I guess it's over a lifetime, maybe you start picking up these tidbits, and at some point you're going to pick up a book and say, "What the heck is this all about?" Just like any other profession or any other activity, right? Something sparks in you, and you learn. But I'd be interested if there are musicians on board here tonight. Has anybody else thought of these kinds of concepts in terms of the physics of music?
Or if you're not a musician and you've thought of these, please tell us.
Well, sure. Um, so these harmonics, overtones or overtones, we call them. It's really what makes the difference in all the instruments sound. The problem comes on Now this is an interesting dilemma because the natural overtone series is not exactly what we hear in today's music.
Like in today's modern pop music and radio music, or what do you mean when you say
No,
that?
I'm going to try to illustrate what I'm talking about. The natural overtone series is a mathematical equation, right? So it's math, and an A 220. If you doubled, like I said, if you cut the string in half, you'd get an A 440. All right, and so on. I went through that in that explanation. So these numbers are not inconsequential. These numbers are actual. And you can, I have it, in fact, there's a chart that lists all the hertz equivalent of all the notes on a piano. Okay, so back in the time of Bach, for 100 years or so, people were arguing about how to set up the keyboard tuning, how to tune a keyboard, basically. And they argued over a thing called equal temperament. And what they did was they took 12 notes in a chromatic scale. In Western music, we use only 12 notes from one octave to the next. From a C to C, there are actually 12 notes. The top C would be the 13th, including all the, if you see the piano keyboard, the white keys and the black keys. So they would argue over how to tune that keyboard. And people would want to keep it consistent with the natural harmonic series, but the natural harmonic series is wrong. I mean, it's not wrong, it's right. Our equal temperament is wrong. We in order that our
What
one
does that
piano,
mean, equal temperament?
yeah, I'm trying to get to that. There are 12, like I said, there are 12 notes within an octave, right? So in order to have somebody in Bangladesh have a piano and somebody in Arkansas have a piano and they're playing the same thing, it'll sound pretty much the same. The notes on it, they have to agree on the tuning of the notes. So you take 12 notes and you space out evenly these hertz numbers, right? 12 divided by whatever the number of hertz is, and then you get an evenly spaced note. Problem is the overtone series. Do I have to share this again, or am I still sharing? I'm not still sharing.
You're still
Okay.
sharing. We could still see it.
I am.
Well, you're not screen sharing. It's just your
Yeah,
background.
let me screen share.
It's your photo.
Okay. So this shows that same overtone series. You don't really have to know music for this. It's just an illustration. And where's my little annotation thing? Okay. This shows that same overtone series, but see these numbers above here?
Mm-hmm.
This tells me how different our Western equal tempered system is to the natural overtones. Now, and this means minus 14 cents. A cent is a hundredth of a hertz, I guess. Right? So just a fraction of a hertz difference for these notes. It's getting a little better. But look at this one. It's almost a half a tone different.
Yeah, that's the highest number
Right.
there in difference.
Right. So that note, that F sharp, will sound really, really flat, really sharp to an equal. It will sound sharp to a natural overtone series. If you played the overtone series and that note, and then you played this on equal tempered system, our system will sound a lot more sharp, higher pitch. What I mean when I say sharp, I mean it'll sound like a higher note, little slightly. It would be kind of between an F and an F sharp, if that makes sense to anybody. All right, it's kind of, we can call it a half sharp, right? Or a flat sharp. I don't know how to even call it that.
Joe, do you have not to interrupt you, but while I'm looking at this music sheet here, did you have some music that you were gonna let us listen to so we could hear the different?
Well, I don't quite have that, but I have a great piece of a genius who put together something, and it's really fascinating to listen to. And he uses differences between the just intonation, the harmonic series I was talking about, and the equal tempered. And this is why I want everybody to try and listen carefully inside this and see if you can hear any distinct differences in what we normally would hear for the equal tempered system. And by the way, I see a comment. Somebody said like the WellTempered Clavier. Yeah, the WellTempered Clavier. I don't even know how to pronounce it. Which clavier really means like harpsichord, basically, or clavichord. Keyboard. Back in the time of J.S. Bach. What happened was he wrote a bunch of pieces in all 12 keys, both minor and major, so 24 keys actually, and they collected it into one collection that he called the Well-Tempered Clavier. And it was about all this even equal tempered system, where he was actually at the time doing his own tuning. He tuned his own harpsichord and his own organs too, as I remember. All right, so if I'd like to play this thing, but if anybody has any question at this point or wants to say something now, probably be a good time before I play that piece.
I'll just read a comment that Taretha Jones shared in the chat a little earlier. Well, actually, two comments. She said music is science, and she never got detailed physics of music, but learned some points over time, more with clarinet reed playing and piano. And she said she got more physics classes and anatomy and physiology, especially cardiac heart function. That's from Taretha.
Are you trying to tell me something? Yeah, of course, I do know that about Taretha, but my whole premise here is whether you're an instrumentalist musician or not, our ears are still calculating all those changes, right? Because otherwise, that's in fact what makes music enjoyable to us, right? Because we hear differences and we hear contrasts. Great art, it has been said, great art is the making together, the making disparate opposites, bringing them together to make them into one. So our ear wants us to resolve harmonically, harmony-wise. We seek out harmony, is basically what I'm trying to say. And our ear does it automatically for us, even though we may not be any good at math or music. We just, it's there within our human condition. I'm not sure why, and who knows if this exists in animals or whatever. I don't know that, but I just know that the human condition is such that we do the math, and we don't even know we're doing it.
That's very interesting.
So let me play this. This is a really interesting thing done by, maybe some of you know this name, Jacob Collier. This guy's a genius, and I've been trying to contact him now for like a couple of years. He's a British bloke, young, and if I can ever get a hold of him, we'll have him on one of our concerts. So let me see if I can. Oh, video. Here we go. This is pretty serious, so pay attention.
Wow. That was unbelievable.
Right?
Show,
You
tell us
dig?
tell us about what it was that we just heard and saw.
Holy cow! There's so much in there. It would take 3 or 4 days
Well,
to
spark notes,
decipher it
spark
all.
notes.
But yeah, um, just let that sink in for a minute. Just let that sound sink in, right? That went in and out of just intonation. He used varying hertz examples, like at some point he was at A32, at other points he was at A444, and using different kind of harmonies to move around that. And if you, there was at one point where he's holding out, uh, it might have been a high A, but that A that he's holding starts at like 432 and gradually over, I don't know, 16 bars or something, it lifts and lifts and lifts and lifts and lifts and lifts towards the very end. And that just sort of brings this whole lift of, that's why we felt, I don't know about you, but you feel like euphoria at the end of this thing, right? It's kind of resolving beautifully, and
Mhm.
that's one of his techniques for doing that, right? He lifted the actual intonation of that note, and then when it finally resolved at the just a big fat major chord, it's there. You know, the
Wow.
piece went through about 5 or 6 key changes, and I mean, just you saw all those pictures of him. He's actually singing all those voices on this piece. It's like mind-boggling.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. He was using his voice as an instrument, as many instruments.
Right. Anybody have anything to say about that? I'm curious to hear any comments at all.
The only comment I have in relation to that kind of performance is the requirement of technology and recording in order to be able to do that,
It's a
which I
new
think
age.
is important. Well, it's a new age, but it's also something that I was thinking about the Carpenters. I think the Carpenters
Mm.
musically were a group back in the day. I think they're known for the harmonies. They're known for their harmonies, but I think Richard Carpenter, I think, did a process where he put those layers on layers, and that's something that I think over the years has just become kind of normalized. But my point is just that it requires technology, and so it's not a bad thing. I'm just saying it does require technology in order to do that. And I think what's interesting is that I saw Jacob Collier perform uh, some years ago, maybe 6, 7 years ago. I can't remember quite when, but he performed by himself, and so not only did he do this technology in terms of recording a video, but to watch him do that on stage with the
Wow.
computers
Right.
and his voices. It was a one man show, and he recreated those sounds and all those layers. So that
Well,
was so mentally it wasn't just watching him sing, but it was also watching him do all of this stuff and all of this creation at the same time. So that was pretty
here's the
fascinating.
here's the thing. He's 27 years old, so he's a right. He's a person of this age, and what did he grow up with? He grew up with computers.
Yeah,
Of course,
yeah,
he's going to
yeah,
put technology into
yeah,
what
Mhm.
his passion is
yeah.
about, right? But to his credit, he did learn everything he could possibly absorb about harmony and music and sounds and all this stuff.
But I think it
So
reinforces. I think it reinforces what you were talking about in terms of not only is he doing that vocally, but he's also doing that with the technology, like what you're talking about in terms of like computers. You have to have a certain mind in order to be able to recreate all of that. So that's why I said it was pretty fascinating because to wonder what was going through his brain as he's not only making these harmonies but using the tech.
you're muted.
Oh
You
yeah,
muted
Carmen, you
yourself.
just there we
All
go.
right. But I was just saying, what is he doing mentally in order to recreate all that? Because he's got to use all of this stuff. I was like, man, I mean, just watching. So he's got to be, meaning he must be brilliant at computers as well as being able to transfer all of that creativity through the process to make that happen. That's pretty
Yeah, how
fast.
about that?
Because like I said, he was a one person show recreating all of that, all of those sounds.
Mm.
I mean, and he was playing more than one instrument as well. So it's pretty amazing.
Mm.
Yep.
Would
I
anyone
mean,
else like
he
to?
went through a ton of just compositional techniques as well. I mean, he has contrary motion in there. He has layers upon layers of harmonic, um, nuance. He has suspensions and um, you know just oddball things that you wouldn't think would fit in a thing
Mm.
like that, but it all fits in beautifully. Love to hear anybody else's comments or
I
questions.
I did see a comment in the chat from Margian. She said a major talent, and I bet he has perfect pitch.
Maybe, maybe.
Yeah.
You want to talk about perfect pitch?
Um,
Perfect pitch is really kind of a misnomer. Perfect pitch is actually memory. You know how sometimes
Hmm.
people have idyllic, what's the word? Ideic memory? Um, photographic memory kind of thing. Perfect pitch is memory for musical notes. So it's not exactly perfect pitch. It's just that they remember exactly what at each pitch sounds like. And you can train yourself to have perfect pitch. I did it once and forgot it. But many years ago, I did. I spent a long time training myself for perfect pitch, and I could walk around and name any interval. But that long ago, it's something you have to really keep at. But I lost that long ago.
My,
But
que-
relative pitch is similar.
my question is, how do you train and what methods do you use to train yourself for perfect pitch?
Well, it's like um, trial and error. You think what your voice feels like singing a certain note, and then you check it. Then the next day, the same thing. What it feels like in your throat, and then you check it, and then sooner or later, your memory is gonna take all that sound and feeling and put it together, and produce what you want to produce. And if you get one note, you can relatively figure out any of the other notes.
Hmm.
Yeah, Margine.
Yeah, relative to that, I mentioned on a previous Monday that I'm hearing impaired, and my instrument in high school was oboe. So if you can imagine, since you tune an orchestra or band to oboe, the challenges that presented me. So I used to sit in front of a strobicon for about 20 minutes every day to try to train my ear uh, along that line. And then the other benefit was that the first chair flutist had perfect pitch in the sense. And I
Did
would
you go
tend to
like
go,
this?
yeah, exactly. I would tend to go flat. And so we would sit right within, opposite from one another. And when I tended to go flat, she would raise her flute up to
That's
let me
great.
know. And then when I was in solo competition, Michigan was well known for their solo ensemble competition on a state basis. And I went a couple of times. If I was going flat, she would sit in the front row. If I was going flat, she'd raise her chin. And so that's how I kind of faked it
That's
through
incredible.
my oboe career.
That's amazing. So you had hearing impaired in high school also.
Oh, yeah. I actually, going all the way back to kindergarten that we know of. It could have been from birth, but I was diagnosed for kindergarten.
And you picked up the oboe.
Well, you know, I started.
Fascinating to me.
Well, I did very well on the test. You know, before they tried to funnel you into band, and I wanted to play cornet. I was playing piano. I played piano since first grade, and my parents said, no, you cannot play another instrument. So the following year, so I couldn't join band. So the following year, my brother decided he was going to play drums, and of course the school had all the drums, and they just gave him the drum pad, to practice on. So I figured if he could do it, so could I. So I joined band that way. After a year, within months, I beat out the kids who had been playing already, and because of my piano background, I could, sight read, do all that. And the band director came up to me and said to me, Margene, how would you like to play oboe next year? And of course I said, what's an oboe?
Right.
And the school was going to be acquiring some, and he figured I had the chops to learn. So I went to the library afterwards, looked in the encyclopedia, and it said major solo instrument. I said, sold.
Do you happen to know if any specific frequencies are the worst in your hearing impairment?
I can't tell you off the top of my head anymore, but of course, high pitch, high frequencies. Yeah,
that's why I was thinking with oboe, which is a lot of the high frequencies, especially and overtones above that, was probably difficult.
Yeah, it's a very resonant, very rich sound. So it kind of fills you up. I would say that yes, the challenge was to hit pitch on the higher notes was more, and it's all controlled by your breath and your embouchure.
Right.
So that's why 20 minutes with a strobicon a day was very necessary.
Sure. Anybody else? Wow.
Well,
Carmen?
I think we're at the time to wrap us up.
I just made a joke. If you look into the chat, speaking of pitch, take a moment. I thought I would just take a moment to say, Joe, great, excellent show, and great having you all with us. And as you know, this was I have no idea what it must be like to sit in a Jazz Arts Academy class until maybe today. This was a pretty fascinating educational course, and we do have this on YouTube. So if some of you want to rewatch it or you want to share with others, it will be on YouTube.
A couple of days it takes.
Yeah, a couple of days it'll take. But all of our series are put on YouTube, and it takes resources and support to make Jazz Arts Project run. Jazz Arts Academy is in session, so our youth are learning at this time. And if you want to give support, go to jazzartsproject.org/donate. So I just figured it was a good time to slip in a pitch right there.
I appreciate that, and I hinted at a little something during the video, and I don't know, Carmen. What do you think?
Yeah, well, we have a surprise. I'm sworn to secrecy, but we are asking people to save the date. We're not going to do a Mondays with Mooche on December 20th, but we will have a special event on Sunday, December 19th at 4 p.m. So stay tuned. More information to come. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. So Sunday, December 19th. So stay tuned. I think that's the most I can give without giving too much away. Is that okay, Jacqueline?
Yes, I think that's quite all right. More information to come, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here tonight.
Let me see if I can.
Yeah. And I would just like to, before we go, can we just get a I don't know, thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs to the thigh? Can we just kind of see what people reaction to Joe's lesson today? All right, I'm seeing some thumbs up. Lisa, Teresa, Harriet, Carlton. And Carlton, you're new with us. Carlton, you're brand new. Can I ask Carlton, where are you coming from?
Gaithersburg, Maryland.
Wow.
Where, Maryland?
Welcome.
Gaithersburg.
Okay.
Gaithersburg.
And how'd you hear about us?
I think I must have gotten either a text or email.
Okay. Well, welcome. Are you a musician or a music lover, a jazz lover?
I'm a musician. I play saxophone, jazz saxophone.
All right. Excellent. Well, it's great to have you.
Thank you.
I hope you'll be coming back, joining us again. We'll be back in 2 weeks, I believe.
Yes.
Carlton, one of our friends and instructors, in fact, we've used for our academy, and we've had him on many of our shows, is Bruce Williams, who hails from down in D.C. area.
Yes, saxophonist.
Saxophonist, yeah.
Yes.
So it's a good buddy of mine, and I figured you would know him from that area.
Mm-hmm.
That's where he hails from. Well, cool. Welcome aboard, and
thank you.
I hope you enjoyed it.
I did. I really did.
Good. And Jacqueline also mentioned Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. It is Thanksgiving week, so hope you are going to be with loved ones, doing something special, or just taking some time off and enjoying the day.
So, as usual, we're going to end the recording and end the Facebook feed, if I can figure out how to do that. And then we have our usual after-gig hang, what we call it. And for a few minutes, if you want to hang out and continue with us, we'd be glad to. So, having said that, thanks, everyone, and bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye. Have a very happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.